And welcome to the May edition of Athera Live. I've lost track of how many webinars we've done so far, quite a few, but it's a real pleasure to have to be doing these things and to be having all of you here with us. I'm just going to do a few quick technical checks to make sure everything is starting up as it should. Here we go. Oh, look, there I am. Excellent. And I'm just checking the chat. Are there people in chat? I'm going to do a quick hello in the chat. See if folks are here. If this is your first time joining an Athera Live webinar, give us a special holler in the chat. That would be great. I hear there's a record number of folks who have signed up for this webinar, so that's really delightful. So, hey, look, there's some people. Hey, Felix. Hello, Mr. Pickles. All right, look at that. There's some folks. Great. Thank you all so much for taking some time out of your day to be here. If you're watching the recording, thank you as well for taking the time to review the recording. This is a special webinar because I'm joined today by Anaïs Torreblanca. Anaïs is the production expert on the Athera team. And so Anaïs comes from the VFX industry, and she is embedded in our team and is just an amazing asset for helping us refine the product and really get our head around a lot of the ins and outs of artist workflows. And she's just really a great element that I think is a big part of what makes Athera successful, and being really nimble and having a team composition that's really focused on building something that's right for artists in the industry. So Anaïs is going to be the star of the webinar, where we're going to be working together to essentially show all of you some of the first steps that you would take with Athera. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have kind of a mock scenario where we're going to join a fresh virtual studio. We're going to bring in some footage, and Anaïs is going to upload the footage using a brand new tool that we have available. And she's going to render some stuff out, and then I'm going to download it on my machine and look at it, basically look at it daily. What's really neat is I'm in Montreal and Anaïs is in London, so we're going to show how all of this is seamless and easy. Without further ado, we can get going. Just so you guys know, we're working with some footage today that comes from a short film called Blues Crab, which is a film produced by Ari Rubenstein from Blue Sky. This is a beautiful little short film. It's unfortunately not out on YouTube yet because it's doing the film festival circuit. But if you get a chance to look up Blues Crab, definitely keep your eye out for it. It's a really great piece of work. And Ari has very kindly allowed us to use some of the footage from the short film in the example you'll see today. So we're actually working with real assets and real footage, which is really cool and a nice privilege. So I'll start off by sharing up my screen here, and pardon me for a bit of the Hall of Mirrors effect that you might see for a second. So let's get going. What would this look like for a new kind of group of a couple of freelancers like Anaïs and I, who are just picking up this project and getting to work on it? So of course, the first thing I would do in Athera is go into the dashboard. The dashboard is your sort of central place for controlling everything in Athera. And in my case, I haven't logged in recently, so I'm going to log in with my really cool ID. This is not my normal ID. We make up a new one for each webinar. So that's me. And one of the neat things about Athera recently is that we have two-factor authentication on by default. So if you're kind of new to Athera, or you have some questions about some of our security considerations, this is a new security consideration that we've taken into account of making sure that everybody who logs into the system has two-factor authentication. What this does is it prevents issues where you might have remote artists or contributors where if their credentials are attacked or stolen in whatever way, that there's the association to the two-factor authentication that's associated to an actual person's device. So that provides a really great safeguard, even better than like IP whitelisting or things like that, which are susceptible to people's credentials being stolen. So two-factor authentication, good thing. We have it. And that's my, oops, sorry, that's my wrong code. And by the way, I don't mind if you guys see my code, my one-time code, because it changes every few seconds. So there we go. I've logged in, and let's see what I've got. Well, so because Anaïs and I are working together, our studio is called Double Trouble. Here it is. There's not a lot in it. This is our kind of first project working together. And you'll see there's not a lot going on here other than, Anaïs is part of the organization. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to give Anaïs a promotion and make her the owner of this. It's good first step, right? And next thing I need to do is, so one of the great things about Athera that give you a lot of control is our notion of roles. So by default, roles are pretty restricted in Athera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that Anaïs and I can move files up and down in and out of Athera using our brand new tool. So I'm going to add Anaïs and I as people who can transfer files. So here we go. Just move my slider over. Add me. Add Anaïs. Excellent. And API access is also a good thing because we use the API for moving files. And because Anaïs is going to be launching sessions, I'm going to give her permission to launch sessions. Myself, as kind of more the bean counter of the studio, I'm not going to give myself permission to launch sessions for now. The other thing that Anaïs is going to need in order to get going is some resources. So our organization right now has basically just one resource in it, which is a NukeX license. And we didn't buy this NukeX license. We actually brought it in from an existing desktop license. And this is something you can do in Athera today just by contacting us. You've got an existing desktop license, we'll make it available in Athera. And soon we're going to have the ability for you to install your own licenses for your own custom plugins. You can do that today, but it's a bit of a custom job that we do on a case-by-case basis, and we're turning that into a product feature soon. In our case, we credit ourselves one NukeX license, but that's not enough to run stuff in Athera. In Athera, you also need the infrastructure to go along with the software license. So if you see, I've got this NukeX license, but I don't have any machine profiles. And a machine profile needs to be paired with the application in order to use it. So I'm going to go purchase some more stuff so that Anaïs can get going. So how do I do that? Well, I go under my purchase entitlements here. One of the important things is before I did all of this, I was very careful to go in my org and set up my billing. So you'll see here I've got my credit card set up, and just so you guys know, this is all a live fire exercise. We're actually going to buy this stuff, and we're going to put them on my credit card. So in order not to go bankrupt making webinars, we're going to buy a limited amount of stuff. Of course, in your studio, the way you would do it is you would buy enough up front in order to kind of test things out, and you can buy more at any time. So machine profiles are completely elastic resources. If you buy 1 hour and you start running out, you add 10 more hours, start running out, you can buy more or less. And it's kind of like putting gas in your car. Once you've bought it, it's yours to use, and it's only consumed according to how far you drive or how long you use an application in the case of Athera. So Anaïs needs several things to get going. So one thing she's going to need is a GPU-capable machine to run her NukeX license. So I went and selected machine profiles, GPUs, and I got a cool selection here. The GPU 830 is kind of the right size one for this case because because she's, the seam's not too heavy. We also have a 16 core option available. So I'm going to buy 5 hours of this 8 core 30 gig machine, and it's going to cost the whopping sum of $6.25. Let's purchase that, and it should go through, assuming I put my credit card details. Oh, it's confirming. Do I want to do it? Absolutely. And the other thing Anaïs is going to need is she's going to need something called Toolbox. So Toolbox is an app. So it's a different type of resource. It's an interactive app, and it's down here in the list. So the Toolbox is basically like a file browser and terminal, and some really great handy utilities so that you can move files around and basically manage your storage in Athera. Toolbox is free, but the machine it runs on is not. So I'm going to give myself 5 days of Toolbox. Not too complicated. It's $0. We make the Toolbox itself available for free. But the Toolbox is best paired with a machine profile, a non-GPU machine profile, and the smallest one that we have is this 2-core 13 gig machine. So this Toolbox thing doesn't need a lot of CPU power, so we're just going to take the cheapest one, 25 cents an hour. You know what? Let's buy 5 hours of that for $1.25. And we just need to buy 2 more things now. We need to buy some render time for Anaïs. So we're going to purchase some Nuke compute because we're going to be doing our rendering in NukeX. So I'm going to go into app. Our type of app is a compute app. So compute in Athera lingo means rendering. Nuke 11 compute basically means this is the application side of what runs on your render node. It's like the host on your render node. So if I buy 5 hours of that, you see it'll cost me $1, and that's in node hours. That's 5 node hours. So if Anaïs does 1 hour of rendering across 5 nodes, then she'll have consumed, this 5 node hours worth. And that, of course, needs to be paired with a machine profile like everything else in Athera, so that Nuke compute will be paired with a non-GPU machine. So render nodes don't need GPUs, which is one of the great things about them, unless, of course, you're doing some kind of specialized stuff. But one of the great things about Athera is we use a type of machine called preemptible machines for rendering, and those start with a P. So the P CPU is a preemptible 8-core machine. The reason we have those for, we use preemptibles for rendering in Athera is because if you're doing a render job and they get preempted or interrupted by Google, it's not a big deal. We just restart that part of your job, and it does happen on occasion. But the great upside is they're very, very cheap. So you'll notice 5 hours of this preemptible machine is $1.25. So when you combine the 1 hour of Nuke app compute and the 5 hours of Nuke app compute and the 5 hours of machine time I bought to run that render job, I have an investment of $2.25 of render time, which gives me 5 node hours of rendering total, which is pretty cool. So here we are. We've got Anaïs all set up. Let's go back and look carefully at our org. Now, if I ever want to look at what entitlements I have, you'll see here are the apps. This is the interactive, or this is the compute one I bought. This is the interactive license we were credited. And this is our toolbox. And here we go. And here's our machine profiles. We've got our GPU, our pCPU, machine profile. So this one is for our toolbox. This one is for our interactive session, and this one is for our rendering. So we're looking like we're in pretty good shape. So Anaïs, are you ready to upload some footage and show us what's there with what's going on with our setup? I'll throw it over to you, and you can show us how we get data into Athera. This is usually one of the first things you do, and Anaïs is going to show you how to do it with our brand new tools.
Okay. So basically, if I'm going to start setting up the studio, I guess that the first things that I will need is like to import whatever I'm gonna be using, and that could be plugins, that could be some assets, footage, other scripts that I already work on. So we can start importing a few things. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is actually import a few plugins.
Anaïs, I think you're gonna. Oh, there you go. Yeah, sorry, I thought we were sharing the wrong screen for a second. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
All good.
So I got here a plugin that I'm going to upload, and I'm going to be able to use it inside Athera. So at the moment, if I'm watching my data, the data that I got inside Athera is like totally empty. Just going to start actually a toolbox to be able to check later the data that I'm going to upload. And the way that I'm going to upload it is I'm going to use Orbit here. Now, we got an Orbit version that is actually the 3.2, but we are developing like a new version, which is like slightly better and allow us to be more flexible when we are uploading things or downloading things, basically syncing data with our machine. So I'm going to use the region that I'm working on, which is going to be Europe. And I'm going to select the org. So I'm going to use the double trouble. Okay. So how it works is like I got here my local destination, my local folder, and a remote folder. So I'm going to choose the local destination, which is going to be plugins. Um, Desktop and plugins. Perfect. And I'm just going to upload it here to the main org. Now, there are two things that I can do. So to upload this, the only thing, and to link it later, the only thing that I'm going to need is create a init.shell. Init.shell will basically add a nuke path until all my nuke sessions where my plugins located. So I can do two things. For example, yes, save this and upload this and then move it inside Athera. Or I can actually create this folder inside Athera. It's the same thing actually. Plugins. So I'm gonna upload. And done. So now if I'm here is so now if I'm watching the data again, I already got this plugin on the org.
Hey, Anaïs, that's really cool. I already see the files inside my Athera dashboard, so that happened instantly.
Yeah, exactly. So now I just need to go where the plugins are, which is here. And I'm gonna basically tell Athera where to look for these plugins. So the thing that you need to do is like create a init.shell, which I already got it here, and add it inside an Athera folder on your org. So I'm already in the org, and I'm just gonna create a folder, which is gonna be Athera. And now if I select here, so hidden files, I'm just gonna drag here the init.shell, and that's it. So I'm actually gonna have to open the file. And the only thing that you are gonna need to do is replace the org name for whatever your org is, which in my case will be double trouble. And that's all. So from now on, every time that I'm gonna launch a new session, I'm gonna have those plugins added. But it can be with any other plugins. You just need to specify where to look at. Okay. And now that I already got like the plugins that I'm going to need for the project, let's add the project itself. So I got here folder structure. You can upload empty ones. You can upload different ones. These already had a few things. So I got here a dailies folder. I got two sequences with some assets and some scripts. To be honest, they are just empty scripts, but well, you can just upload anything. Got some footage here. And let's do exactly the same. Let's just select the path. So we got desktop, folder structure, and I'm gonna upload the project blue scraps. And I'm gonna upload it again to the same org and upload. And all this data will also be appearing here on your dashboard. So you will be able to control what you got also without even launching a session. So I am actually using Toolbox just to manage all the files and be able to control them. But you can just see what you got on the data page. So there's no need to actually spend money or launch sessions just to check what you got. Okay, and everything's uploaded, and we see it here. So this is the plugins that we already added, and this is the project. We got here the dailies, the 2 sequences, and some assets, the footage, and here you have 72 EXR files. Okay, so now let's run Nuke.
Wait a minute. How much data did you just upload, Anaïs?
Like 1 gigabyte, roughly. Not much. Let me check.
How long is that taking?
Well, it was on lifetime, but it took like, I don't know, 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
That's really impressive. That's some really fast data transfer.
So that was 125, 176 items. Obviously, it will take more if you upload more data, but yeah, that was like pretty straightforward. Another option that you can obviously do is import your own data. If you go to Double Trouble, you can, to your context org, you can include your own GCS, S3. So there's no need for you to have to upload the files every time. You can just connect something that you already have. But also there is no need to connect something outside. You can just upload the files that you have on your computer. Cool. So let's open Nuke. And here's something that I will actually encourage anyone that is going to use Athera, and it's use Orbit, not only to upload, which is like it's a free app that we obviously do, but not only to upload, but also to use it on the app. So like the feeling of working with the app is just much better than working with Chrome. So that will just launch a new window here in my desktop. There you go. And it will be more similar to using Nuke locally, but I will still be using Athera. So now let's check what we got. So I'm just gonna go to the path where the footage was added. This is data, org, project, any one of them, and let's go for the footage. Yep. And this is the footage that I just uploaded. Now this is actually a full comp, but let's assume that it was a raw footage and I just did something on it and I just wanted to render compute on it. Oh yes, maybe this is an EXR, maybe I just want to pass it to an MOV for any reason, or I just want to, I don't know, just add a different version of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one render and I'm just going to add it to a dailies folder. So let's add another version 4, for example. Why not? And this way, well, you can actually have like a different folder called dailies that you can basically download every day if you need it, or maybe just download a few files. Okay, so let's save this. Save comp as data. And yeah, it's gonna keep it here. And what I'm gonna do now is basically send it to a render farm. So it's a compute job, but it's basically like any other render farm, but it's inside Athera. So I'm just going to submit the job and done. So now if I'm going to my compute page here, I already see that the job was already sent, and it started here. I'm actually able to see the logs in real time and see what is happening and see any problem that it may happen, or if there was like an error with my write notes, uh, anything. So we can see that it's actually rendering and done. So now if I'm just opening, that's the one that I did, the version 4, and here is, oops, start on frame 1. And yeah, that's it. So as fast as that. And now, if I will actually want to download these dailies that I just did, like, oh yeah, there was like some new light coming from the top, I can just go and do the same again. I can maybe go to the remote part and set plus dailies, and yeah, select the dailies folder, and I want it to be yeah, my desktop. And that's it. And I'm going to press download from Athera. And it's receiving the order. So, and it took like, I don't know, 3 seconds to download like 270 megabytes, 2 files, and I got them here. So that was basically me uploading data to Athera, to the cloud, and downloading the, the, the job that I did. But it's not only me, the one that is accessible, the one that is able to access this data. Like, for example, any user that it has the right permissions will be able to download data from it. Matt, do you want to give it a try?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to check out that render you just did, Anaïs. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to my Orbit client here. I can actually go in real time and see inside of this inside of the dashboard that under this Blues Crab folder and dailies, there's some fresh stuff here, which is great. So if I open my Orbit client and I go to download that, see, select my double trouble org, very similar to what Anaïs did. I've got my folder selected here, my dailies folder, which is great. And yeah, let's download. And that is coming into my Athera sync folder. And here's the files. They're coming in. They're taking a little bit more time on my end, mainly because I'm based in Montreal, so they're coming over a little bit of a longer connection. But still, the performance is pretty good. So once this is ready, I'll be able to give this a look. See, 2 files, 200 megs, about halfway done. Not too bad. And it's your 8-second time though. That's a speed record.
Yeah.
It's quite impressive. Here we go. Just about done. So I can see here that we've got 2 files. So this way, yeah. Well, cool. So version 4. Okay, let's see what version 4 looks like, and I can do a local review right here on my my PC and see what this looks like. Wow, that's nice. Really nice effects in this Blues Crab shot. That's really cool. That was a nice turnover in terms of setting up a studio from scratch, getting a bunch of data in, buying a bunch of apps, rendering some stuff, and passing it on to someone. We did that in like about 20 minutes flat, Anaïs. That's pretty good. Shows how amazing and powerful it is. And what's really cool here is, Anaïs could have used any number of render nodes that she wanted to. The data could have been much larger. As you see, we did a small scale test. The performance is really fast. That scales up very well also. And, we're working over a large distance, and it doesn't feel like it is. There's no Dropbox or any kind of shuffling around. We're all in the same studio, and we're seeing the same raw data. and working within the same infrastructure, which is really powerful. In fact, if I go back to my studio here, I can go into my reports page. I can actually see all the stuff that Anaïs did. Look, I can see she did some nuke compute, and she did some nuke X, and she did some toolbox, and I can actually see the resources she used, how much time she spent on this stuff. We even have a new feature here, which allows us to, if you're an administrator, you can actually look at the other sessions that people are running. So I can actually see that Anaïs is running 2 sessions. One of them is Toolbox, one of them is Nuke X, and I can even look at the logs for those sessions. So as a supervisor, this is really great. What happens sometimes in a lot of studios is, Athera is a little bit similar to traditional licensing in the sense that licenses are non-concurrent. So if you've got people competing for a license, you're usually like yelling across the hall, like, who's got the hero license locked out? This is a really great tool for being able to kind of look at a high level at your studio and see who's using what before you go and start hollering over chat. So cool. Anaïs, I believe there's some Houdini stuff in this project as well. Do you want to maybe kind of show a little bit what that's all about?
Sure, I can.
Cool.
So
So first,
let
I'm going to need to credit you some Houdini. I actually have internal Houdini license that I can credit. Let me just add that to the project, and then
okay.
we can go.
I can actually upload something in the meantime,
Oh,
which
great.
that way I can open like some alembics in Houdini, just to show a couple of interaction between Nuke and Houdini.
Awesome. That'll be great.
Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, I'm applying a Houdini a Houdini credit to our organization. Now, if you guys are Houdini users, one of the nice things about Athera is we're not precious about things in Houdini, things in Athera being necessarily being Foundry applications or not. We have a great relationship with Side Effects where they make Houdini rentals available to buy on the Athera store. But you can also bring your own existing Houdini license into Athera if you ask your contact at Side Effects and let them know that you wish to use your Houdini license within Athera. We'll then set that up once we receive the confirmation from Side Effects, so you can actually use Houdini quite easily within Athera, which is quite powerful. So how about I throw it over back to you, Anaïs? Are you ready? And let us
Yeah, sure.
to show us the Alembic stuff that we have in this project in Houdini.
Yes, of course.
All right, great.
I think that I'm still seeing you, Matt. Am I showing the screen?
Yeah, your screen shows. Yeah, go right ahead. You can hide my window. So
Okay, sorry. Perfect. So I'm actually going to upload one more thing just because it has like a few files that I can use as Alembics. So here got like a really simple script with a camera tracker, a couple of Alembics, and they all got relative paths because you may be already working with something, and when you upload it to the cloud, well, you don't want it to break. So it will go work exactly the same. So if I'm going here, I'm just gonna select here script, and let's upload it same place to the org. And I'm just gonna say upload. Done. So now if I just open, gonna do it in Orbit. If I'm just opening a new com, okay, and I'm gonna open the script that I just uploaded. Data org. Now there is one error that I'm expecting to see here, which is the folder was actually generated in OS X. And when I bring a script into Linux, it kind of like gets slightly upset. But as long as I just save the comp as a new version on Linux, everything works as expected. So if I'm taking my project settings, I got here the the script is actually in my org, so it's inside Athera. And the rest, it works exactly like expected. I got here the script directory, and my footage is on relative paths, and I got here a couple of alembics that are also with relative paths. Okay, so let's just imagine that I did like this alembics and I just wanted to import that to Houdini. So what I will do is exactly the same. Go back to my apps page and open Houdini. Let's go for the 17 version. And what I'm doing right now is actually waiting for a host. So when we launch a session, we're kind of like saying like, okay, want to start a host? Do you have any host available? If there is, it normally starts straight away. And if not, it's just like turning on a new machine for me that I can use. And as it's already 6:30, this doesn't seem that there are like many machines working in Europe anymore. So I just need to wait a moment for it. Which in the meantime, I can actually show another interaction between using Nuke locally and using Nuke in Athera. So this is Nuke locally. So like any other, just working on my local computer. And I'm gonna open the script that I'm gonna use actually, the one that I just uploaded. I'm just gonna do something which I found pretty cool. It's just like obviously you can within two Nuke sessions you can copy things from one to another, but this is actually like in the cloud, but I'm still able to do it. So let's see, for example, I don't know, this model builder that I got here, and let's say that I actually want to add another thing, right? So I got here, there you go, and I don't know, this looks like a something for a cube, and I'm just gonna like create like really fast. This doesn't really matter, just want to show it that we can. Fine, that's it. And now if we look, the model builder that I got here in Athera just has obviously one cube, that is the one that I saved. I changed these, and exactly like you will do, I can just copy paste with it, and if we see it, yeah, I just create a new one. So this is something that you can only do if you're using Orbit. If you're using just the Chrome version, it wouldn't do it because it doesn't know the interaction between your computer and Athera. But you can also do that with a whole script. It's like copy paste, like you will do with a few different scripts. And okay, let's go back to Houdini. Mm,
It looks like the Houdini host is still starting up. So, but Anaïs, you
yeah,
just showed copying, pasting from a cloud workstation into a local Houdini. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
Yeah, we get asked a lot about the level of capability there. I think there are some limitations around copying and pasting images and stuff like that, but for Nuke scripts and Nuke nodes, it works really well as you demonstrated. That's pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, obviously, it will. If I'm copying the whole script, it won't be able to find the local files. But yeah, all the rest of the nodes they work exactly as expected within two Nuke versions locally. What I'm actually gonna do, I'm actually gonna close my Nuke session, and I'm going to start a Houdini.
Yeah,
So I
I think one
am,
of our Houdini hosts is a little slow waking up.
yeah. So
We'll try launching another one. Yeah, there you go.
There you go. So what I expected to happen is like these just use the previous host that I was using with my nuke session. So that was like, yeah, that's pretty fast. It's basically when there is a session running, when there was like a host running, it goes pretty fast.
Yeah, one of the cool things about Athera is each of those sessions is like having another machine available to you running an application. So you can spawn as many as you want and have several full powered workstations going on at the same time. You can just kind of shut them off or launch them with the right amount of compute power you need from time to time. So that kind of flexibility and the ability to sort of multiply your workstations is really cool, and it's not expensive. You're only paying for the underlying machine time, which is $1.25 an hour for an 8-core machine. So that's really cool. What Anaïs is doing, that type of flexibility, is something that we think is kind of one of the superpowers of using the cloud instead of buying a lot of hardware.
Mhm. Okay, waiting for the Houdini session to start here. There you go. Okay, so the files that I have, so on the I just uploaded these inside Athera. So I just uploaded, it's actually this script. So it's just like a camera tracker, model builder, the camera data on Cube. So it will work exactly like in Nuke. So I can just, like, for example, file import. Yeah, why not import an Alembic? And same thing. I will just need to go and find it. Let's see, maybe is it easier here? Scripts, and there you go. Sure. And yeah, so, and the same thing will work the other way around. So if I'm doing any changes, or obviously any effects, I can just well, export it and then import it also both locally or within Athera. And if I would, for example, want to do a render inside Houdini, I will need to, well, create a render node. Why not? Create a camera. And then just as normally, like do a compute. So this would be exactly the same like we did on Nuke. So we will just need to have the right compute entitlement, like compute that will work as a render farm, and that will same thing appear here, or export and then download. Yep.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of the nice things about Athera and Houdini in particular is you can launch Houdini simulations or mantra renders. And one of the features we're adding in the near future is the ability to have dependencies between different render jobs. And one of the things that's motivating us there is a common workflow of, for example, if Anaïs's asset was, let's say, an actual simulation, and you want to run the simulation and then fan out a render afterwards, you'll be able to do that using job dependencies in Athera, and essentially just launch the jobs one after another, and then they'll chain, and then eventually the whole job chain will complete, and you'll be able to kind of look at it as you go along. So that ability to kind of plug into Athera's rendering system, it's more than just a rendering system. It's a full-fledged compute system that can do simulation and rendering. Adding job dependencies is the next step, and it's available for a wide variety of the applications on Athera. You don't need to go and get a whole bunch of separate stuff to do that. It's all kind of built into Athera, and it sits right next to your data. It was really cool how Aeneas was doing these renders, and I was just able to get the files right away. And all we had to do was just move them once to the local machine for local review. But otherwise, we were working completely in the cloud. We didn't really have to worry about moving a lot of data in and out, except when we were getting set up and when we wanted to do kind of local review. So that's pretty cool. I think it's a good time to do some Q&A. What do you think, Anaïs? You
Yes, sure.
feeling ready to answer some questions in the chat? Really, it's really cool to see all these features come together. One of the things we often do is work on features sort of one after the other, and these webinars are a great opportunity for us to sort of chain things together. Obviously, our customers are doing that every day, and that's a really big source of information and just really helps us shape Athera. And yeah, we really encourage that type of, we live off of that feedback from our users. But of course, there's a lot to Athera, and there's a lot there already and a lot that we're working on. So if you guys have some questions, put them through the chat, and we'll take some questions in the chat for the next 10 minutes or so. And be really happy to hear what you guys, what's on your mind after some of you seeing Athera for the first time, maybe some of you seeing it, after a few webinars, maybe some of you are users. So yeah, fire away. A little bit of a delay on the stream, so if it sounds like my voice is out of sync with the chat, that's the reason why. So if you guys are typing questions, I'm just going to give it a few seconds for those to come through across the stream delay. By the way, that workflow that Anaïs showed of copying and pasting from Orbit to local machine is really cool. That's a really awesome workflow. Anaïs, I believe that works the other way too, right? Like if you have two nuke sessions open in Athera, you can copy and paste between those sessions using Orbit.
Yeah, exactly in the same way.
Yeah, that's really cool. And another cool feature we're planning to add soon is the ability to launch multiple instances of the same app within a session. So if you have, for example, um, multiple nuke sessions that you want to have side by side, do like really quick copy paste between them without necessarily going through Orbit, you'll be able to launch like 2 or 3 nuke sessions within one session, and just facilitates the copy and paste. We have a question. Is it possible to rent a nuke license as you did for compute process? Yeah, that's a really great question, Umberto. So the answer is that rendering and compute works a bit differently than interactive sessions. So an interactive session requires an interactive license, obviously, and that's typically either a desktop license that you have already purchased through Foundry or Side Effects, and you just need to pair that with a machine profile, or it's one that you've rented from the Athera store, and those rentals are on 30-day terms, so they're like 30-day rentals. If you need a longer term, like a quarter, or you want to be on an annual license, you can get those directly through Foundry. Rendering is different. With the way it works with compute, is everything is by the node hour. So the app part and the machine profile part are both by the node hour. So you don't have to buy an extra license, and you don't need to have an existing license. That's much more elastic and much more flexible than the interactive license side. So you don't have to buy an additional license for nuke rendering or mantra rendering. You just need to buy the appropriate entitlement for the right number of node hours, and off you go. You don't need to procure a license outside of Athera for that. So it's a lot more like, Conductors Inc., where you can use a really kind of elastic rendering system that's built into Athera. Mr. Pickles has a question, and this was uploaded to a location called /data/org. Is that storage by Athera, and how big is it? That's an excellent question. So yes, that is storage provided by Athera. Everything under your org or your project, that's what we call group storage. So group storage is a storage that's built into Athera, and it's basically controlled by Athera. You can't kind of disconnect that storage. It's built in and it's always there. So we don't currently have any limitations on how big that storage is, but in the future we'll probably have a model where we would vend that storage according to how much you need, and probably have like a free quantity for the group storage that's sort of a built-in free amount. So when Anaïs was uploading into that location, it was going into Athera's built-in storage. But we could just as well have connected our own storage by procuring, let's say, an S3 bucket or Google Cloud bucket, and we could, of course, upload our data there and work with it within that bucket. In that case, the storage is not provided by Athera, it's provided by our cloud provider, and then we're able to disconnect that storage and take it away with us at any time, or even keep it connected to Athera and maybe share it with a different cloud service that wants to connect to the same cloud storage. We just write files into that cloud bucket, the same as if they were just regular files, so you have a copy of your data available to you at all times. Question from Glenn McGuire. Hi, when working on a project and artists are all in different locations, would we then add them to our main account, or would they all need their own accounts? Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the things in Athera that's really neat is the idea of your account, like your identity and your association, are completely flexible. So the artists that you would want to work with would have their own accounts, and then you would associate those accounts with your studio. So those artists might be associated to other studios. They might have their own studio. That's neither here nor there for you. You just add those people's identity to your studio, and when you don't want them in your studio anymore, you can remove them. So you don't have an account for your studio. They have their own Athera account that transcends your studio, and you can add and remove them. Basically, the same way you treat them like individuals. There isn't the notion of like, my organization's Athera accounts. You have full control over who's in your roster, and you basically pick your roster from the global pool of all Athera users that are available worldwide. Brian 5x5 says, does copy paste across Orbit require two Nuke licenses, or is that seen as two instances of the same license? Yeah, so if you have two Nuke entitlements, basically two licenses, then yes, you can launch two Nuke sessions concurrently and copy and paste between them. And the example Anaïs showed, she had a desktop license of Nuke and an Athera license of Nuke, and she was copying and pasting between those two. So yes, in both cases, there are two licenses of Nuke in play, and that's how it works. Licenses, interactive licenses, are non-concurrent, which means you can't basically run the same license twice or have two sessions running at the same time against the same license. Of course, you can bring in as many licenses as you need and run those non-concurrently across your team. Cool. Some awesome questions.
Sorry, Matt. Just wanted to say that even if you actually do need two different licenses, you could also copy paste from two different scripts within the same session, within one license, actually.
Yes, that's right. And that's kind of the capability we're adding, where you can kind of launch Nuke within the same session to have like kind of two instances of Nuke within one session. They're using one license. You can kind of copy and paste between them. So that's really cool. Great question here from Beat Boy Pete. When will Teradici be supported? Yeah, so great question, Beat Boy Pete. We're working on it. We're making some progress integrating with Teradici. They're quite supportive, and we're getting over a few technical hurdles that have to do with basically adding some flexibility that's required in Teradici to sort of fit into the Athera environment. Athera being a cloud native container based platform using a lot of cloud buzzwords, but it really is built with a kind of a new generation of cloud technology, and that's caused a few technical hurdles for us to integrate Teradici, and we're overcoming those, and we expect Teradici integration to be available sometime in the future. We're actively working on it, so stay tuned. I know Teradici has been something we've been talking about for almost a year now, so it's been a little bit. We've had a couple of false starts with it, just trying to get the right requirements for what we need to do to get the integration going, and we're starting to kind of zero in on some of the final phases of that. So we think we're getting close, but of course, I don't want to set expectations too high. But yes, we are actively working on it. It's something we're striving for very strongly right now. Do I get to use that rental interactive license locally? Yeah, that's a really great question, Umberto. So the answer to that today is no. If you rent a license through Athera, it's Athera only. So if you'd like to rent a license and use it locally, the best way to do that is to go through Foundry. purchase your license through Foundry, and then have that license moved into Athera. And what that allows you to do is to switch between using your license locally and using your license in Athera. Of course, we don't want you to double dip. We don't want you using both Athera and locally at the same time. That is against the spirit of the license agreement. But yeah, if you do have a local license, you can definitely move that into Athera. Unfortunately, it doesn't work the other way around. If you purchase a license in Athera, you can't use that locally. That applies. That applies for all of the things in Athera. But of course, if you have a strong need and you did buy something in Athera and you have a need for a local license, give us a call. We might be able to find some flexibility within our sales team, but it's not a supported workflow. Cool. Great questions, guys and girls. I think we're going to wrap the webinar up very soon. This has been a really great full hour, and you guys have been really awesome. As always, the place to go for all things Athera, I will share my screen briefly here. And if you guys go to athera.io, and of course there is the 30-day trial available. But if you go to the bottom here, there's this contact the sales team. We should actually change the name of that because it's not just the sales team. This is actually goes to myself and some members of the dev team as well. If you have a question that's not answered by what you saw in our webinars or through our documentation, which by the way, you can get at any time, great source of information. We get a lot of common questions coming in over email that are answered in the documentation, which is a testament to how good the documentation is. So I want to highlight the documentation, things like system requirements and how applications work and all that type of stuff. This is a great place to look. But if you have questions that aren't answered by all of that, come to this Try Now page, go to the bottom, click on the Get in Touch button, ask us a question, and we'll get back to you. It'll be our pleasure to give you some more info. Most especially if you have a commercial project that you're looking at and you're considering Athera, give us a call through this channel as well. We treat commercial opportunities a little bit different. We like to dive in deeper with folks who are looking at transforming the way they work and moving to cloud, or maybe they're just starting out from scratch and want to do it from cloud but need some help. We really, really cherish and value those opportunities, and we see them as much more high touch, and we're much more engaged, much more closely engaged on those types of things because we really want to help you kind of go through that whole process and be successful. So if you're considering that type of transformation for your studio with regards to cloud and Athera as a consideration, contact us that way, and we'll talk to you a little bit about our proof of concept program and how that works, and we'll tell you a little bit about how we can get started. So I think I'll wrap there. Anaïs, that was amazing. Thank you so much for being the star of this webinar.
Thank you, Matt.
Great job. Is this your first webinar ever?
Yeah, it is. It is my first webinar ever.
That's the show. It's really great. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we hope to see you on the next webinar. So I'll stop the broadcast, and I'll say see you next time. Take care.